Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our penultimate Messiah workshop. Delighted to be here again with you. And I wonder do we have anybody joining us from Omaha, Nebraska, or the regions? The reason I ask is that I had a very delightful interview with a gentleman from your local NPR station, which aired this morning. So I wondered if that brought in anybody from Omaha. If there is, say hi to us on the chat. If you're not subscribed to the channel, you won't be able to chat. So please do subscribe to the channel. Little bit of plug for our concert, which was coming up on Friday, a week from tomorrow. St. John Smith Square, we will be performing the 16 voices. I need to make that clear. Somebody pointed out last week. Do people realize there's going to be more than 4 people in the choir? There will be 16 voices in the choir for our performance of the Christmas portion of Messiah, which is the first 5 sections and the Hallelujah chorus. So the sections dealing with the prophecy, the Annunciation, and the Nativity of Christ. We thought that would be lovely to do in the run-up to Christmas, given that we can only actually give an hour's performance under COVID regulations. However, if you are in London, you can join us for that performance. There is a limited number of tickets available for that performance, and if you can't join us in person, we will be streaming the performance live, and you'll be able to find details about that at core.app. There is information up there now. Tickets are on sale for the live aspect of the concert are on sale via the website, and information about how to access the live stream will be up very, very shortly. So that's the concert next week. There are the two other concerts, of course, that we're doing in December. The 16th of December, we will be celebrating Beethoven's birthday, on his birthday, in the 250th anniversary year of his birth. And on the 21st, we will be singing a concert of Christmas music from the 20th and 21st century with works by Vaughan Williams, Holst and Finzi, as well as a number of contemporary choirs. And joining us for that performance will be Mary Bevan and Roderick Williams. So I'm very excited to be finishing off our 3 concerts with those 2 wonderful guest soloists. Please do join our mailing list if you haven't already. You'll find how to do that on the website. Then we can keep you informed about aspects of those concerts and things that we will be bringing to you next year. Which brings me to the last point before I let Martha come and do tonight's warm-up. It is, we are sending out this weekend with our newsletter for next week, we will be sending out a link to a questionnaire. That link is also in the details for this video below. Please do fill out that questionnaire. It will really help us to know what to do for you, what things you liked about this workshop, what things we could do better, and what things that we might consider doing. So we're looking to plan all sorts of things for 2021, whilst we still are not able to get back as choirs into communal rehearsals. So if you could, fill out that questionnaire. It will be very helpful to us. Okay, before we do a warm-up, let me just remind you who's with us. We've got Emma as a soprano, Martha, a mezzo-soprano, Jeremy is our tenor again, Jonathan our bass, and William, right there in the back, is our pianist this evening. And I'm going to make sure that I've got the page numbers sorted out so I can cue you if you're in the Prout edition. And whilst I do that, Martha, if you'd like to come and do the warm-up.
Hello everyone, thank you for joining us again today. We'll keep this relatively short, I think, and similar to the last time I led one, just so we've got plenty of time, because there are quite a lot of notes to get through tonight, aren't there? So, usual things, let's check that our weight is evenly distributed across your feet. Give your shoulders a bit of a roll, shake your arms out a little bit. In fact, let's just do a little physical exercise for some deep breathing and some posture. So, I'll show you what I'm going to ask you to do, and then we'll do it together slowly. So I want you to be thinking about nice, deep breathing all the way through this. You're going to take a long, slow, deep breath in, and whilst doing it, you're going to raise your arms up to your side. Then you'll breathe out. You'll turn your palms round. You'll breathe in, up here, out, in, and out. So I'll tell you when to breathe. Just follow the actions I'm doing and concentrate on some nice, low-release, deep breathing. So, a breath in, and out, and in, out, in and out. Great. So what I'm hoping you're feeling is a nice connection with this low, deep breath. Also a sense of openness across the chest and a nice elevated rib cage, so you're feeling nice and ready to sing, I hope. Let's put a thumb on the belly button then, and let's just have Will, can I have a bottom G, please? Thank you. Great, let's work up by semitone then. Let's keep with just v and lovely, let's stop there and let's switch to let's do something slightly higher energy on a siren sound. So I'd just like... possibly high enough. Lovely, thank you. And let's just finish with a nice a rolled R or a lip trill. And great, thank you. Let's get going.
Lovely, thank you very much. We do have lots to get through, although I won't spend too much time on that thanks, as it's not in the Prout edition. Is this your lovely pink pencil?
It is, thank you very much. Yes.
I'm collecting them. I have more each week. Okay, but for now, let's turn to Ssince by Mann, which is page 186 in the Novello and page 163 in the Prout edition. Let me just go back to that. Nope. Excuse me. Anyway, 163 in the Prout. Ssince by Mann. Here are your starting notes, if you could give it. Lots of support, yes?
Ssince by Mann came death. Ssince by Mann came death.
fantastic. Good start to the evening. So let's go right the way back to the very beginning of this. And of course, as you know, anybody who's sung this, and I'm sure you all have sung it before, this is probably the most nerve-wracking part of the entire piece. So first of all, I can't deal with your psychological approach to this. You'll have to deal with that individually. But what we can deal with is sort of approaches and things to think about to focus any nerves on that are practical. So for example, sopranos, thinking about that C to the C sharp and really practicing being high enough up for that C sharp, because that's often a place where the sopranos will drop down, won't they? They'll let it go after the length of the...
Just got to have it in your head before you start singing it. As soon as you finish that C, just go up a semitone in your head. And yeah, I think rather than kind of feeling for it with your voice, scooping up there, which sometimes people do when they're a bit nervous about it.
And the scoop is never quite enough.
Yeah.
It's you got to really get up there. And altos, you can help by making sure that your E stays constant.
Yeah, and I think being particularly careful of that when you've got repeated notes, actually, especially if you're thinking about conserving breath. I'd rather you took an extra breath and stayed in tune. So maybe start thinking by is still full of energy, and if anything, thinking it ever so slightly higher than Ssince. It's more likely to go flat than sharp, so think up.
And learning all the other parts around you, so you know where what those harmonies, or your individual notes, how they fit into the harmonies, where they connect to, is really important. So I think shameless plug for core. One of the great things about the app is that you can separate out your parts. So if you're learning the soprano line, learn it with the alto. When you're comfortable with that, learn it in the context of the tenor line, or learn it in the context of the bass line, so that you're tuning your ears to hear all the parts of that vertical harmony, not just your part and perhaps the one person or the closest voice part next to yours. Anything from a bass perspective or a tenor perspective? No? Well, in that case, let's sing the tenor and the bass line from the top there. One of the things I will know I'd be working with the basses on, or have worked on with choirs when I'm doing this movement, is making sure that we're very careful about those steps down the semitones, the G, the F sharp, the F, the E. We want to make sure that we're not taking too big a step as we jump down those notes there. Let's take it from the top, the tenors and the basses. And one.
Ssince by man came death, Ssince by man came death.
Lovely. Something else to practice, I think, is the practice it as ince by man, and then get the s in as quickly as possible. Because the other thing that tends to cause a little bit of nervousness is if you start and the other people around you may have started as well, but they may be taking so long over that S that it doesn't feel like they're there with you. So focus on getting that E vowel in as quickly as possible, and as that's where you're focusing on, and the S is as quick as possible. Let's do the tenor and the alto part now, just showing how important it is to learn the parts around you and when you're linking together, when you're not. So the tenors and the altos, please. And one.
Ssince by man came death, Ssince by man came death.
Very nice. So you see how those parts are really moving in a very similar shape. So that should be something that you should be paying attention to. Now let's take the bass and the soprano line, who are moving sort of in contrary motion throughout this, but do have chromatic passages happening at the same time, just going in different directions. Here we go. And one.
Ssince by man came death, since by man came death.
Lovely. So if the sopranos, if you're not going up enough on that chromatic steps and the basses, if you're going too far, you can see how that's going to pull the tenors and the basses are not going to know where to go with any of that. So let's take everybody together, please.
Since by man came death, since by man came death.
Very good. Okay, so the next part, by man came also the resurrection. First of all, your ability to really get that first quaver together comes down to the person stood in front of you and how nice they are. If you have a conductor in front of you that's just going to go boom on the downbeat, then it's going to be all up to you to try and hold it together. If you've got a nice conductor, which I try to be as much as possible, I will always finish the previous part with a nice 3/4 into that, so you've got plenty of time to be subdividing to get those quavers. Okay? But that's what you need to do to get them, is take whatever beats you do have to subdivide yum bum bum ba dee da dum. So that's what I will try to do to make that easier for you. Can we take the bass line, which is, yeah, anything you want to say about the bass line? It is?
It's sort of an instrumental bass line, so it's you're doubling exactly what the instruments are playing up and down in the voice, like an arpeggio. It's hopefully pretty straightforward.
Just try it, shall we, basses? Go right the way through this section. 1.
By man came also the resurrection of the dead. By man came also the resurrection of the dead. By man came also the resurrection of the dead.
So absolutely fantastic demonstration of tenuto singing. Every single one of those crotchets was the full length. Sometimes the bassists that know me will know that I'm often stomp around the stage asking the bassists not to sing like they're doing the Wellington boot dance. So singing tenuto just means everything is filling up the space as beautifully as that was. But it's not legato in the sense of the resurrection of the dead isn't sort of smudged into the next and becoming very, blurred in that way. Everything is nice and rhythmic and full length and not accented, or not accented unless there is a required accent by the text. Is that a fair enough description of what you sang so well?
Absolutely, I think, and if the conductor wants to shape that section, he or she is perfectly able to do that in a certain way, because we might not sing absolutely every note the same way, but find a sort of a focus to each phrase. But that's up to the conductor to, sort of convey to the singers. But
it is one of those bass lines that can very easily end up with an accent on every beat. Boom, boom.
Yes.
Which no, we don't want. Okay, let's take the tenor line, please. 1, 2.
By man came also the resurrection of the dead. By man came also the resurrection of the dead. By man came also the resurrection of the dead.
I don't think it's heresy to say that Handel didn't spend as much time thinking about his tenor and alto lines as much as he did about his glorious soprano and bass lines. Unlike unlike Bach, whose lines tend to be very clearly thought out. I'm not saying that Handel didn't clearly think it out as well, but there's the famous story, isn't he? He delivered it to Jennings after how many weeks he'd written to this, and Jennings was not impressed at how quickly it had been sent back to him, and Handel said, "Well, what's wrong with it?" He said, "Well, there's nothing wrong with it." He said, "What's the problem then?" And Jennings said, "Well, how good could it have been if you'd spent some real time on it?" Anyway, my point is that sometimes tenor lines and alto lines can end up being often the same notes.
Yeah, I think the altos have drawn the short straw here, haven't we? Ours it's mostly G's, it's not very consistent.
Exactly.
So I think it's our job, therefore, to put lots of energy into the text. If you try and be a good colleague, look at the soprano line. Some of your soprano colleagues might not find it quite so easy to make the text very clear on those top G's. So you give it lots of text and you'll be doing your job.
Yeah. And you get to jump around to fill in the rest of the harmony.
It's very much a line that is filling in the missing notes, isn't it? Really, I think for the tenors just to make up the chords.
Yeah. So unfortunately, you have a structural role to play. And also, as Martha was saying, a structural role to we can still make it interesting. But the tenors, you have a slightly more challenging one of having to jump around for that harmonic structural role. Shall we take the tenors and the altos, please? 1, 2.
By man came also the resurrection of the dead. By man came also the resurrection of the dead. By man came also the resurrection of the dead.
See, it may be the same note, but you can sing it with such variety and interest. That was delightful. Thank you very much. Let's add the... let's take everybody now for this section. Well, is there anything you would like to say about the soprano line before? No? Okay.
Not really.
Not really.
By man came also the resurrection of the dead. By man came also the resurrection of the dead. By man came also the resurrection of the dead.
Lovely. Let's go on to the next part. And now let's take the tenor and soprano line, please, from the next grave section. And 1.
For as in Adam all die, for as in Adam all die.
Lovely. Super. Let's take the altos and the basses, please.
For as in Adam all die, for as in Adam all die.
Fabulous. So the two trickiest parts, I think, in what's going on with the bass and the altos are the third bar there, where you come out of... the second bar, where you're coming out of a G to an E and a D to an E. So you've got to make sure that that octave is perfectly in tune. So that's one tricky moment, because if that's not in tune, it makes it very hard for the tenors and the sopranos. And the second one, of course, is where you step up to that B flat in the bass line, which is against an A in the altos. So I would really be looking to practice those two aspects in particular, practicing your tuning of the octave in the second bar, and then making sure that your tuning is correct for that B flat in particular, which is probably going to be higher then you think it's going to be basses going up from that D. Just a guess, but everybody please, let's take the section. Very nice. So same idea here, the basses, you've got that same sort of instrumental line there. Tenors, you're not jumping around quite as much this time. Let's take the outer parts again. Let's take from C, from the allegro, the basses and the sopranos. Here's your starting notes. And 1.
Even so in Christ shall all be made alive. Even so in Christ shall all be made alive. Even so in Christ shall all be made alive. Even so in Christ shall all be made alive.
And just in the middle of nowhere, then he throws in that lovely passage. Let's take the altos and the tenors, please. Same place. And 1.
Even so in Christ shall all be made alive. Even so in Christ shall all be made alive. Even so in Christ shall also in Christ shall all be made alive. Even so in Christ shall all be made alive.
Fabulous. Everybody.
Even so in Christ shall all be made alive. Even so in Christ shall all be made alive. Even so in Christ shall also in Christ shall all be made alive. Even so in Christ shall all be made alive.
Wonderful. Okay. Let's move on, shall we? To now the next one, But Thanks. I'd just like to cover it for those of you who do have the Novello score, 199. We won't spend a lot of time on this because it's not in the Prout edition. But let's start right on page 199. If we could give us our starting notes, please, will you? And we'll start right at the beginning of that bar. So this is bar 25. 3 and...
But thanks, thanks be to God, thanks be to God, thanks be to God, thanks be to God, who giveth us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. Giveth us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ.
But thanks be to God.
Thanks be to God. Thanks be to God. Thanks be to God. Thanks be to God. Thanks be to God. Thanks be to God. Thanks be to God. But thanks be to God. Thanks be to God. Who giveth us the victory. Who giveth us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. But thanks be to God. But thanks be to God. Who giveth us the
think it's a shame that chorus gets cut and the preceding duet as well. You know, it's a lovely one. I guess it's often a time-saving thing by that point in the evening. But it's just such a lovely chorus in the way that the words get thrown around and there's all these interjections. And, well, anyway, I encourage all choral societies out there that haven't done this previously, next time we do it, let's all make a vow that in Christmas 2021, if we do Messiah, we'll put thanks in that as well. Okay, I won't spend any more time on that one because there's quite a lot to say, I'm sure, about Worthy is the Lamb through to the Amen. And I know that these are all in both editions as well. So that's page 217 in the Novello, or 173 in the Prout. First thing is the sound needs to be large. You know, it's largo. It doesn't necessarily need to be massive in volume. It should never feel shouted. Too often it has sounded that way. And I think particularly as most choral societies today generally perform this with a more historically informed performance style with smaller orchestras, we're not bringing out the Mozart or the Prout or the other versions. So we're not having to fight against massive orchestral forces. So there's no reason for this to be oversung. Let's just... Should we sing it and then sort of give suggestions? Yeah, we do that? Yeah. Let's take this from the top, please. So page 217 or 173. Lovely. We'll get on to blessing and honour in just a moment. So, it's an opinion. It's my opinion. But the largo shouldn't get to the point of being so slow that we lose that sense of the language. I've heard many a performance where it is thought of more instrumentally than vocally. And we need to hear worthy is the lamb that was slain. So we've still got to have a concept at the beginning of the sentence where we get to slain. So by all means be big, but let's not pull it out to the point at which the words get lost. And the same goes, God by his blood to receive power. We mustn't break that when we go into the andante. We're still going through one idea at that point in both of those cases. That's my tuppence as far as the conductor's perspective is concerned. Thoughts about either of those sections from a singer's perspective?
I think that this one is very nice if the orchestra, the trumpets, can start with the choir. So we often hear a W which comes about 2 beats before the note's supposed to come, about a fifth lower. You go, whoa! that kind of thing. It's nice if you can pitch your W on the note you're about to sing, especially if it's higher in the voice spaces. Yeah. Just to get that bite on the sound right at the beginning. It's quite an amazing moment in the piece, heading towards the end, to have that sort of bright sound if you can pitch that W on your D or F sharper.
Yes, so just to be
pitch your
specific,
consonants.
it's the pitching of the consonant.
Pitch your voice consonants, like
Yeah.
a W.
Yeah.
On your, I mean, as a general rule,
Yeah.
you should be doing that, but especially the W, which can sound quite ugly if
Yeah.
it's scooped up to a note.
Yeah.
Not terribly classy. So if you can try to get it on that.
Classy W's, please.
Yeah.
Excellent. Anything else?
I think that through the receive power and riches, much like you said, you've got to think of the bigger phrase, but also you don't want to be breathing every time you get one of those little quaver rests.
No.
I think you need to be thinking through those as much as possible, because if you breathe every time, you're going to end up either getting behind or just going to get going to hyperventilate if you breathe all those.
And every time you add a breath, you have the potential for coming in late on the next
Yeah,
note as well.
absolutely.
So that's another
Yeah.
aspect to bear in mind. Why do we practice everybody just to getting that first note and for the pitching of the w? So we're just going to, here's your notes. We're just going to hold w, yeah? And 1. Can we drop the W altogether? So we're going to go okay? And 1. Now with the w. And 1. Yeah, so you can hear how the lovely sound is coming from the vowel, and the W is exactly the same pitch, but also very, very short. Just have enough to give the sense of the word there. Can we take the tenors and basses, please, through this first section? And 1.
Is the Lamb that was slain, and hath redeemed us to God by his blood.
So the same again there. We've got worthy is the Lamb that was slain and hath redeemed. So we can't let that crotchet rest there, expand. We're still in the same sentence there. Okay? Let's take the sopranos and the altos, please. And 1.
Is the Lamb that was slain, and hath redeemed us to God by his blood.
Oh, that was lovely. And I also like the dynamic. So, I mean, what would you call that dynamic?
Reverential is what I was about to say, which is probably not what you're after.
No, absolutely. I think
Yeah.
that's right. So if you didn't hear that, the response was reverential. And I think that's a perfect response, because it gives a context to the dynamic that is perfect for the text. And so if we wanted to be pedantic, we would say, I don't know, mezzo-piano, somewhere between. It's in the mezzos area.
Yeah,
It wasn't quiet, it wasn't loud, but it was definitely reverential. I thought that was fantastic. The dynamic markings you have throughout these scores, you'll notice they're all in brackets. If I was to show you my text orchestral score, there are no dynamic markings in Messiah. They've all been put in. There's a few, there's a couple, but generally they're all editorial. So we do not have to stick to those F markings. Can we all try a reverential dynamic there, like that one? So think reverential.
Is the Lamb that was slain, and hath redeemed us to God by his blood.
Brilliant. And I think the most important thing about that conversation about dynamics is that the way in which you're thinking about it is not just placing a dynamic against a musical line.
No, it has to mean something. There has to be a reason for it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think we can too easily forget that when we're thinking about, well, let's make some musical in inverted commas, difference in this piece, or let's make that quiet. Well, why are we making it quiet? So that was a fantastic response. Thank you. Next, going on to receive power and riches, shall we try this demonstrating when not to breathe? And I think that the importance from a rhythmic point of view is if you're not taking those many breaths, it helps you to move it forward as well. Not rush, but keep that sense. Because each time you take a breath, it sort of places you firmly in the here and now, doesn't it? Rather than that forward trajectory. Let's take it, everybody, please. Here's your starting notes at the andante. 1, 2, 3.
To receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing.
Very nice. And make sure that, and blessing, there is absolutely no slowing down of the tempo there. Yum, ba da 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 dum is what the accompaniment has there. We don't want that to slow down there. Can we break that up again, just to hear those notes? Let's take the tenors and basses, please. 1, 2, 3.
To receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing.
The other thing that's been very nicely demonstrated behind me here is that the second of each of those quavers is not being held on longer than is written or is necessary. Because that's the other problem, is that you can get that bleed into the rest, which we don't want to happen as either. Sopranos and altos, let's take it, please. 1, 2, 3.
To receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing.
Super. Everybody. 1, 2, 3.
To receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing.
Now, I'm rather nice. I like to give him a chord on the downbeat there, not the organ or whatever. I think it gives. It's an easy thing for us to do to make you feel more comfortable in this next section. Is if you just get the a chord at A with your, as you did at the beginning of the piece. Let's keep with the idea of the reverential dynamics, and let's take the basses and the sopranos. Let's take the outer lines this time. And 1.
And wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing.
Super. Altos and tenors, please.
Riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing.
Smashing. Everybody, please.
To receive power and riches Blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him that sitteth upon the throne and unto the Lamb.
Blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him that sitteth upon the
That sitteth upon the throne and unto the Lamb.
Blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him
Blessing and honor,
that sitteth upon the throne and unto the Lamb.
blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him forever.
Blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him
And sitteth upon the
That sitteth upon the
that sitteth upon the throne.
Blessing and
blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him
Forever. Blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him,
blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him, blessing, honor, glory and power be unto him.
that sitteth upon the
That sitteth
throne.
and unto the Lamb.
Forever,
Forever,
forever, and ever,
forever and ever, forever and ever, forever and ever, forever and ever,
Wonderful. We'll get to the Amen in a moment. So this movement, again, take the dynamics with a pinch of salt and really focus on just having fun. It's just such great fun. Focus on you and your colleagues in your section being as tight and together as possible, as light as possible, as lively as possible, and let the dynamic come out of that, to be honest. I think, this, again, it doesn't have a mass accompaniment. It's not like you're singing over brass and woodwinds and percussion and anything like that. Yeah, that's what I would ask for anyway. Let's look at the tenor and bass lines, shall we, for the first being in unison. Anything to want to say before we get into this?
It's a bit harder for the basses, I have to say, because it's a bit higher in the voice than it is for the tenors. So it's nice that there's a lot of tenor noise. Obviously, it covers the basses slightly, and it's a little bit thankless to sing "Oh, the glory and power be" all the same notes. So I mean, maybe think that the phrase through to the end a little bit more than individual words.
Okay, let's just try it. Basses and tenors. 3.
blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him that sitteth upon the throne and unto the Lamb.
Lovely. Sopranos then take over at that point. Let's do from your entrance. We might as well just do the whole line, shall we? Next one. And 1.
Blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him that sitteth upon the throne and unto the Lamb, forever and ever, forever and ever. Glory.
See, effortless. So practice being effortless. But talk to us about bar 31 and sort of that you've got.
Yeah, it does jump around quite a lot.
It does jump around that bit, doesn't it?
Again, it's just about knowing where it's going to end up. If you don't know where the phrase ends, then you might get lost in the middle. So if you know you kind of, at the end of that bar, you're heading back up to a D, at least if you go a bit awry, you can sort of get back on track.
And maybe practice it in a couple of sections. So maybe practicing the D, D, C sharp, so you get that sort of movement, and then the 2 quaver bits. And
keep the air going as well. I think it's very easy when you sort of see something that looks a bit scary to kind of tighten up and kind of tighten up your throat as well, because you're like, oh, this is a scary bit, and then actually it's harder to sing because you stop. You restrict the air from coming out. If you keep the flow going, actually tricky corners like that will be much easier.
would you also practice it by taking out the notes singing the notes on the beat and ignoring the passing notes until you've got that confident?
Yeah, you could
The
do
da
that.
dee da,
Lots of things,
F sharp E. So singing the D, D, C sharp, then the F sharp and the E, getting that nicely together, and then putting in the intervals of the F sharp to the B and the E to the A. Just little ways of breaking it up and practicing that. Let's take the little alto line there, right the way through to bar 36, if you wouldn't mind, please, Martha. 3, 4. Oh.
Yep.
Yes, sorry. I was looking at the wrong line. 1 and.
Blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him, forever and ever, forever.
Lovely. So at the moment it's got to get all more complex there again. Let's take the tenor line, please. Bar 30. 3.
Sorry, where from? From
bar
30?
30?
Yep.
3, 4.
That sitteth upon the throne and unto the Lamb, forever and ever, forever and ever, forever and ever, forever and ever.
So I guess part of the challenge for our tenors out there is not to close up the...
Yeah, don't close up. And I mean, it's a pretty nasty vowel to be singing up there. So I think you shouldn't be afraid of sort of slightly modifying that to more, you don't have to be quite so, it's not that wide. Think of it more vertically than horizontally when you're trying to sing that vowel, if that makes any sense at all.
So when you're thinking vertically, are you actually referring to what's happening in...
Yeah, so it's almost, imagine almost like you're singing an R vowel internally.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be much easier to get through that. The higher stuff will definitely...
Cool. Let's come to the bass line in a moment, because you really take us on into the next section as well. So let's do all the soprano, tenor and alto line, starting at bar 28, please. And 1.
Blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him, that sitteth upon the
That sitteth upon the throne and unto the Lamb,
blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him,
forever and ever,
forever and ever.
Lovely. Let's go back to the basses, please. Bar 34. Bar 34. And 1.
blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him, that sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb.
Lovely. I think that's a good place to take that one too. Let's take the... altos next, please. So this is the pickup to bar 37. 3, 4.
That sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb.
Now, hopefully, if altos are listening to the basses and the basses are giving it the right sort of energy, that gets passed across from one voice section to the next. Could we, well, we won't do that, just those two sections just yet. We'll add the soprano. So let's do the soprano line, the pickup to 38, please. 3, 4.
That sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb.
And tenors, you come right in the end of that cadence. So let's just do the tenor line quickly. 3, 4.
And unto the Lamb.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Let's work the way. Let's take it from where the basses start, please. Yeah.
Sorry, was it?
This is bar 34. Always the problem with sort of fugal type writing is where to start these things. So, la 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 la, and then the tenor's joining forever. So this is yeah, yep. And the sopranos you're going to start on the E. Yep. And 1.
Blessing and honor, forever and ever, that sitteth upon the throne, and unto the Lamb.
Excellent. Let's take the basses and the altos for the next section, please. 1, 2, 3.
Blessing and honor, glory
Blessing
and
and
power be unto him,
Glory be unto him, that sitteth upon the
and
sitteth upon the throne forever and ever.
blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him.
Lovely. Fabulous duet going on there. Let's take the sopranos and the tenors, please. So this is bar 40. Bar 40. 1, 2, 3.
Blessing and honor, glory and power be
Blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him, and unto the Lamb.
that sitteth upon the throne, that sitteth upon the throne.
Blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him. Blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him forever. Blessing and
Lovely.
honor.
Let's take everybody from bar 39, the fourth beat of 39. 1, 2, 3.
Blessing and honor, glory
Blessing
and
and
power
honor,
be
glory and power be
unto
unto him.
Blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him,
that sitteth upon the that sitteth upon the
blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him. Blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him forever. Blessing and honor.
Let's take from that blessing and honor to the fourth beat of bar 51. Let's take the tenors and the altos, please. 1, 2, 3.
Blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him, be unto him.
See how you're so close there with your G's and your B's and your A's? Yeah, really, really, really need to connect there. Let's take that one more time. Actually, let's add the sopranos this time. Sopranos, altos, and tenors. 1, 2, 3.
Blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him, be unto him.
Now let's take the tenors and the basses, please. 1, 2, 3.
Blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him, be unto him.
And altos, let the tenors do most of the work there, I would say.
I don't know, I'm making a pretty filthy noise, but I'm just having fun. I know no one can really hear me, so.
Let's add the altos to that. Altos, tenors, and basses, last beat of 53. 1, 2, 3.
Blessing and honor, glory and power be unto him, be unto him.
Lovely. That's like some torch song going on back there, isn't it? Fabulous. Okay, let's look at these blessings. So some of they're all slightly different, aren't they, as far as pictures are concerned? So the basses. Let's just do the first one. So 3 and
Blessing.
yeah. Now, what you did so nicely, and what I want them to do so nicely, is not to hit that first note. Because I think I get blessing. Happens. Do you find that?
It's natural because it's the higher note, obviously.
Yeah.
The same point applies, I think, with the W that we had in Worthy, that you sing the BL
Yeah.
up high there. So maybe that's why you get your accent you don't like, but I think it's better than having blessing.
Blessing. Yeah.
Blessing.
Blessing. Yeah. Tenors. 3, 4.
Blessing.
Altos. 3, 4.
Blessing.
And sopranos. 3, 4.
Blessing.
Very nice. Just turned into a Benjamin Britten opera. Everybody, please. 3, 4.
Blessing.
Let's really get that together. So just as Jonathan was asking, the just really, really. Yeah. 3, and.
Blessing.
And then honour.
Honor.
And glory.
Glory.
And put those together. 3, 4.
Blessing. Honor. Glory. And power be unto him that sitteth upon the throne. That sitteth upon the throne. And unto the forever, forever, and ever, 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 forever, and ever.
Lovely. Could somebody talk about the repetition of those vowels in ever and how you get it so light and clear and without adding, there's no huzz added. I know, you all do it naturally. You've done it for many, many years, but I think it's something that, it's tricky. That's very tricky to sing over those.
I think it helps in this one to have a little bit of a glottal on it. Sometimes people don't like that, but it just helps it be nice and clean at the beginning of the forever. So you're not going forever, because, that's not what it says anyway, but forever. Make it nice and...
But when we sing the 16ths, the da-da-da-da-da...
Oh, yeah.
For me, it's probably different for all of us, isn't it? But for me, the thing there is keeping my tongue in one position. It's just not moving that, then the vowel doesn't change.
Okay.
I was thinking of a horse. You know what I mean? Like on that. Just, it's a bit silly, but it kind of works actually,
yeah.
for a bass. Maybe not soprano.
Should all pick an apple.
Nay slightly.
No, yes, I know. Okay. Well, it works. If that's what you're doing, it certainly works. Okay. Let's look at Amen. We're already at 8:30, and I'm sure there'll be things we want to say about the Amen, and I don't want to keep going over this one. So let's talk about a few aspects of it before we do. Shape, again, volume-wise, there's no point in making this loud, just for the sake of making it loud. We'll lose shape if we do that, and if we start competing with each section, it'll just become a muddy mess. We want to shape those phrases as they are shaped naturally. Shall we sing through to bar... So we'll start the Amen, and we'll sing through to bar 10, end of bar 106. Let's just do to that. So first, there are very, 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 very few markings in Messiah as far as dynamics and articulation is concerned. And then all of a sudden in the Amen, we get these pointy things over there. It's pretty much the only articulation in the entire piece. So I do think if they're there, there's one place where we do need to pay attention to that articulation marking, given that he didn't put anywhere else. Anybody like to add things about general unphrasings in this one, Martha? I picked on you because you did a wonderful masterclass for us a few weeks ago.
Oh, so they've heard all that I've got to say. I basically, to be quite honest, at this point, I'm going to hand over to these guys because I'm copying them because they come in first. So they have the power. So you tell us.
Well, I mean, you were right about don't sing it too loud because A, you're going to be knackered by this stage, and B, if you're not knackered, you haven't been working hard enough. And I think,
it should be your diaphragm.
It is, yeah, tired. No, it shouldn't be the vocal cords.
No,
No, it should be. So, I mean, but physically, yeah, you should be really feeling it by this stage because it's a big old sing. It's a long night, and this, sing it sort of within yourself, and it's it doesn't have to be belted out. I know it says forte in here. I don't realise that's an editorial, but yeah, just it's lots of beautiful lines in this. You can just really sing it to yourself.
It's not a bad start. If you're enjoying it, then hopefully the people around you will enjoy it too. And then also paying close attention to when other parts start, so that you're sort of being a good teams player and coming away. Yes. Let's talk about those articulations. The men. How are we? What are we doing? What's happening in our throat and our mouth there to stop those notes and make that articulation?
I'm not even sure what they're called, because they're not staccato, and they're within if it is Handel's phrase mark, I mean, what are they called?
Marcatos, but they are a very, very, they're an attack in shortness.
Yes, it's a diaphragmatic thing more than a throat thing, possibly. That kind of sound.
It's a very odd marking.
They're very inconsistent
as well.
It's
a very instrumental marking.
It's a string marking. Yeah, string marking, definitely. Yeah, very instrumental.
And it gets a lot of debate because we get no other markings. And it is odd. It's not a staccato marking. It's not a tenuto. It's quite an extreme thing to have placed there.
I think doing them gently, as Johnny just demonstrated, is exactly the thing to do.
Yeah.
And especially with what you've just been saying about possibly being tired by this point. If you end up having a very enthusiastic glottal and you're going to make yourself even more tired. So be gentle with them, I think.
And I think it's the separation that's important. So it's not an attack, even though it might that marking might imply an attack. I think really we should just take the separation as being.
You could always watch the cellos and how they play those notes, because they'll probably be doing single bows, sort of detached. That's the kind of feel he wants, I think.
Yeah.
They're not very consistent. I mean, sometimes he gives them to the tenor, not the bass, and vice versa. So.
Yeah, It's interesting though. He only places them over the R, doesn't he? Each time.
That's true. Yeah.
He doesn't want the men short. It's only the separation of that. So that's what we take from that, is separating the R. Yeah. Okay, enough talk. Let's take the bass line, please, from F through to bar 81. There it is. 3 and.
Amen.
Lovely. I think that demonstrates everything that we should be looking for in the bass line for this whole of this section. Let's take the tenors now. Let's take your line from 77, and we'll go down to the bottom of that page. 3 and. Lovely. Let's just take the altos from bar 82. 3, 4. finally, the sopranos, you just come in there at bar 87. 3, 4. Let's put all that together, please, from the first bar, bar 72. 3, 4. Nice. Let's look at G, please. So this is bar 102. So after the...
Can I say one thing before we move on? Which to the basses especially. This is fine to practice on its own. But when you've just sung through Worthy is the Lamb and Blessing and Honour and all that, and you get to this moment where you have to suddenly be all by yourself, usually with a conductor that wants you to be quite quiet, it's worth just taking a second and taking a breath and just poise yourself, because it's quite a hard moment for the basses, I think, and it's one that you could panic in if you're not careful. So just... after you finish forever and ever, just and just take a breath and sing into that, because it's a potentially difficult moment.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, we'll get to do that before we'll sing all three.
Oh, good. No pressure on myself.
Okay, Amen at G, letter G, bar 102. Let's take the altos and the basses, please. 2, 3, 4. And the sopranos and the tenors. 2, 3, 4. Lovely. Let's go on to the next entrance at 109. Well, I guess we should do that together first, shouldn't we? Though? Maybe we should do that. And then we'll break it up in the next part. So let's do 102. 2, 3, and... Good. Now let's go to the next entrance at 109 and take the basses and the sopranos. 2, 3, 4. Let's do that much, please. And let's now take the tenors and the altos. 2, 3, and... Lovely. So really this polyphonic writing only makes sense when you place it into the context of what the people around you are doing, and finding, taking it to pieces to see which parts are most similar to yours, where you're passing ideas around, where there's contradiction in the ideas. You need to know that about everything around you for you to make sense of what you're doing. Even if it's might be conscious to begin with and subconscious eventually, but work your way into your part by learning the other parts. Let's take everybody, please. 2, 3, breathe. Lovely. So really, it's got to be about shape. It's got to be about energy. It's got to be about enjoyment. I think singing for yourself, I think, is a really, when you've put in all that effort for the last 2 hours to get to that point, it'll just be so much more powerful if all those things are there more so than just the volume. Any other suggestions or hints?
Yeah, I think in that section, and that obviously partly can be led by the conductor, but I think each individual singer can do this, themselves too. Just finding areas where you can come back a little bit, like you're saying, it doesn't have to be loud all the time. No. So like page 229, sort of a few bars after K, that's quite a good place to just bring it back down again. The harmony's changing, and then you start building up again. I mean, he sort of writes it in. So follow his lead. If he's writing that the parts are all coming down in pitch, that might be an indication that would be a good place to. So
this is from the sort of last soprano entry, really, after K. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Prout's got different.
Yeah. So you're not like, oh, it's the amen, I'm just going to bash out every single phrase because it's the end and it's loud. It can still have that nuance in it.
Absolutely, yeah.
But when you get to bar 150, you should probably sing as loud as you possibly can.
I mean, yeah, at the end, sing as loud as you physically can, obviously.
I don't know, we'll see. I think, if anything, I like the slowing down tradition of bar, 148, 49, but not if it's overly loud. I mean, be nerve-wracking for the wrong reasons. I mean, if we've got a choir of 600 and we've got the Prout edition, that's one thing. But okay, how about, are we up for doing the whole thing in From Worthy is the Lamb? And then, yes?
Yeah.
And if you are feeling tired, then just sing for yourself and don't worry.
2 minutes.
If you want to give them their starting notes as well. Okay, so this is page 217, Worthy is the Lamb. 173 in the Prout. thank you very much to all my wonderful colleagues here for absolutely thrilling music around me tonight. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. Please do go to core.app to learn about the concert on the 11th of December, where at least 2 people behind me will be singing as soloists tonight. Martha, you're doing the Beethoven concert,
yes.
aren't you? Yes. Yes. So please do join us on the 11th, either in person at St. John Smith Square or online. And in the meantime, I look forward to seeing you for our last Messiah workshop next week, when we will sing through a good portion of this, I think. Maybe not all of it, but as much as we can in an hour and a half. Anyway, in the meantime, look after yourself.